My favorite is that in the front, there's this beautiful fountain and there's a big gulp cup just floating. Like the producers, I almost feel that the producers were like, before they shot this pilot, we're like, okay, get the big gulp cup, get some beer cans, we're going in.
That's actually the Trevi Fountain in Rome. It's traditional that lovers throw a big gulp in there.
Big gulp, yeah.
And then their wish comes true. Welcome to The Outfit. It's the first guest episode. No, excuse me. What am I saying? First remote recorded guest episode due to a contract on my life. I'm Dan O'Sullivan here with Alana Hope Levinson, as always, of course. How are you doing, Alana?
I'm good.
And Alana, we're flipping the script a little bit today. It is an Alana episode.
Yeah.
Get
ready.
You're doing my job. I'm doing your job.
Yes. And what that usually means is it's a pop culture episode.
That's right.
Which is my favorite thing. So we're going to be talking about this incredible work of art, also known as Growing Up Gotti. It was a reality TV show in 2004 on A&E.
The golden age of reality TV.
Yeah, actually, straight up.
Yeah. And we have a very special guest who's kind of an expert on these things to discuss it with us. Do we not?
We do. No contract on his life yet.
No, just me.
If we do a good job with this episode, that's coming soon, Misha.
Misha Brown, host of The Big Flop. Welcome to The Outfit. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, besties. A little tit for tat here.
Yeah, exactly. So we were on Misha's show. We had a great time talking about Anthony Weiner. Never forget.
Another tri-state area legend, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think just jumping in, Misha, what is your familiarity with the mob? And maybe even just mob pop culture. Did you watch this show in 2004? I mean, I don't want to guess your age, but perhaps you were in high school, middle school, not sure.
I was in high school.
You were. Okay. So kind of tell us what your understanding of this whole ecosystem was.
So admittedly, when it comes to the mob stuff, you're going to have to teach me. You are the masters. Okay. I am the student. I don't know anything.
Oh, I think we can handle that.
That's
okay.
Literally Dan's kink is teaching people about the mob. That's all he does.
I was very excited to come here today.
Okay.
So, but Growing Up Gotti, I mean, this is like the early aughts. This was our time. I think, this was 2004 beginning. So I was probably going into my senior year of high school. So like, this was like like you said, the golden age of reality TV at this time. And I mean, this fits the bill. Like, reality TV was so problematic back then with like, the Swan and, that one with the kids.
The Swan.
Did you know that the Swan, you cannot even find it? Like they've tried to erase it from the cultural memory. Like I've tried.
They have scrubbed it.
Yeah. You can go to the dark web and buy it. Like it's an illegal drug.
Let's recap what the Swan was, just to give a little bit of context.
Dan, do you know what the Swan?
This is vaguely familiar, but refresh my memory.
Misha, take it away.
Yeah. So the concept of the Swan was actually inspired by the story The Ugly Duckling. And so they found, in their opinion, the ugliest women in America. And it was all the things you'd think. They had warts, they had larger noses, they had bigger bodies, flat chests, all of those things. And they took them away from their families for many, many months, stuck them in a house with no contact to the outside world, not a single mirror where they could see themselves. And they went under head to toe cosmetic procedures, just so much surgery.
Like you can't recognize, they come out.
You couldn't recognize them. They had like nutritionists and diets, and they came out, as the Swan, as these beautiful creatures in their eyes. And then it turned out they didn't know this. It was actually then a competition and a beauty pageant against each other. Surprise.
So it's this healthy cultural environment in which growing up Gotti entered. And I think that that's helpful context.
Yeah.
In this sense, a reality show about the family of a mass murderer seems maybe okay, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's actually ethical, right?
It's ethical.
Yeah.
Oh, I just
But you
think
know
that all
what?
Gen Z should have to sit in a chair, be strapped down, and watch The Swan just to understand how far we've come.
Millennials.
Yeah, because I'm like, we can't undo all of that. Like, we can try, but we grew up watching The Swan.
Yeah, absolutely. I was rewatching this. I was like, you know what? This is so funny because as problematic as the early aughts of reality TV were, you got to give it to them that they had a very good sense of humor,
Mhm.
and it was Gen Z, they might not understand it, but we do. We understand that it was part of the culture to talk about people's bodies, to comment on things that today wouldn't fly. And we've learned, we've grown, but at least we got to experience it.
Totally. I mean, this was, okay, so just a little more context on the show. When it premiered, it got over 3 million views, audience members.
I mean, this is how
isn't the
much has
internet.
changed,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And that was like the biggest hit at the time for A&E. So they immediately extended the first season. And again, so we talked about The Swan, but the aesthetic of the show was very similar to shows like Simple Life, The Osbournes, Girls Next Door. If you haven't seen those, highly recommend. But yeah, it's kind of hard to describe because now every reality show, right? There's like typically like a whole deep dive into the politics of every single person that's on these shows. These shows, it was almost the opposite. It was like, we're picking people who are problematic to star in shows, and they're going to do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was clear with this.
Yeah.
That was super clear with this one because I'm sure we'll get into the whole synopsis of this first episode, but what they packed into 22 minutes of airtime, they clearly had no idea which direction they were going in because there were so many storylines.
It was so good. Okay. So yeah, back to the show. We'll just talk about what the concept of the entire show is, right? So it follows Victoria Gotti, who is the daughter of John Gotti, the Gambino crime boss at one time. He has since died when the show is airing in 2004. And
in prison, it must be said.
Yes, in prison of cancer.
They got him.
He casts a very long shadow, obviously. She's also recently divorced her ex, Carmine Agnello, who worked for the same family as her father, although they hated each other. But the concept of the show is this is a single working mom. And suddenly she's faced with all these bills, this massive estate that she has to run. And one of my favorite lines is, the only mob I run is the one I have at home. And boy, does she have a mob at home.
Boy, does she have a mob.
Her 3 teen sons, Frank, Carmine, and John. And I have to apologize. Everyone in this episode has the same name. Like, they've taken the Catholic custom of naming someone after like your father to its utmost. Like, there's like 5 Johns, there's 2 Carmines, there's 2 Franks. So we'll try to make it clear. But the 3 sons, Frank, Carmine, and John, walk around shirtless with big cross jewelry, and some are the scariest boys I've ever known. Misha, tell me what your initial take is on the sons, but also on Victoria. Like, maybe you can describe her and what she looks like.
Well, yeah. So obviously we have to get into introducing the characters. That's what they did right off the top. Victoria, I can understand why they chose her as, the anchor of this series, of this story, because she is truly a character. I mean, like, the amount of hair on her head is unfathomable. Blonde hair, many shades of blonde, I might add. There were so many pieces attached to her
toner.
head.
We didn't have toner back then. This was the dark ages.
Yeah. It was just a warm blonde, But she's such a
wasn't
character.
that a reality show? A warm blonde? That's
a warm blonde and her kids.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, seeing her 3 boys shirtless with their big chains, like you said, so much hair gel. It really made me miss home. I currently live in Texas, but I grew up in upstate New York. There's such a large Italian presence up there. And I was just like, I grew up with these kids.
Yeah.
Not nearly as like infamous or rich, but man, are they brats though.
Oh, and see, what's funny is mine, I was like, this is so triggering, these guys. Because these are just like the guys in high school who were like popular and like huge bullies, just like terrible people. It's hard because they're teens. So I want to be like, but they really make it hard. The way they talk to their mother, oh my God.
Well, actually, though, I mean, having grown up on Long Island and gone to Catholic school, I don't have any traumatic memories of guys like this.
Yeah, no,
not one.
So that means you're one of them. That means you were one of them.
Yeah, right. Well, listen, I think Italian-American teens only take their shirts off and get angry when they're in extreme distress. It's a sign that they're not being fed right. And this is a problem. But she is trying to take care of them, I think, under less than ideal conditions. Am I wrong on this? Where is the father in all this?
Jail.
Yeah. Jail. Recently divorced.
Yeah, I think he's in jail. We'll talk about him later, but he's not a very good criminal. He's just constantly in and out of jail. And they seem to do that thing where they're really overcompensating for, perhaps a lack of a man in the house. So they're just constantly like bossing around their mother. It's toxic masculinity all the way down.
Well, and that introduced the third storyline in the first 9 minutes of the show, right? Because it was first like we were meeting, the daughter of John Gotti. Then we have, a newly divorced single mom. And then the next thing was, I have to sell this house because of all of the ghosts and all of the memories of my husband. And so then it was like, right, the real estate lady came in to like look around at their destroyed trash house. Yeah, so it was like incredibly gaudily decorated.
Misha,
so
it's almost
hysterical.
Like you get paid to do this because that is my next transition, which is my favorite character in the show is actually not a human being. It is this house. And we need to talk about this fucking house. I'm sorry. This house is in Old Westbury, New York, in Long Island. Okay. It was built in 1996 by Victoria's father, John Gotti, which means there was no expense spared, right? Columns, marble, basketball court, tennis court, guest house, swimming pool, a swim-up bar. It's 6,000 square feet. She also tells the real estate agent there's 42 security cameras. That comes with it.
Cool.
But,
washer dryer, usually, dishwasher, right?
But lest you think that this is actually a nice mansion, I need Misha to kind of explain what we're working with.
Y'all imagine there is just drapery everywhere. There is not a surface that does not have a tchotchke placed upon it. It is just so cluttered.
And not a cute
and such an eyesore. No. The worst, like if you go to Italy and you just go to a tourist trap, like souvenir shop, and you say, I'll have 3 of everything, please.
Right.
And then I'm just going to dump it into every room in my house. When they got to the pool and she said, oh, what a gorgeous pool. And then it was completely empty except for just like that brown swamp, like at the bottom of the pool with just like lawn chairs thrown in it. I almost threw my phone at the television.
Oh, and there's trash floating. My favorite is that in the front, there's this beautiful fountain and there's a big gulp cup just floating. Like the producers, I almost feel that the producers were like, before they shot this pilot, we're like, okay, get the big cup, get some beer cans. We're going
That's actually the Trevi Fountain in Rome. It's traditional that lovers throw a big gulp in there.
Big gulp. Yeah.
And then their wish comes true. But if I may, this is very interesting to me because growing up on Long Island, I actually spent a lot of time in Old Westbury. It was near where my grandparents grew up. It's an interesting town for this because there's a place there, Old Westbury Gardens, the Phipps Estate, which is like a Great Gatsby era mansion. And it's insane. It's like this English estate in the middle of Long Island, right? So this was a place that people would build these things. And I just love that the 1996 version is like, if Michael Jackson was Italian, this is what Neverland Ranch would look like, right?
Yeah.
Like
100%.
That's what we're up to now, So she's trying to sell this thing, right? But every surface is marble?
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll get more into this, but it's like, it's hard to sell a house that's really hard to renovate.
Mhm.
Like, and this house is like the floors are marble, the walls are marble. Like, this isn't an easy thing to flip. Let's just put it that
No.
way.
Well, and it's not even about just staging, right? Because when they go out to the guest house, that was also like a really good hint that the boys really run this house, because it was completely trashed from a party months earlier, she said. I mean, just still full of empty cans and beer pong tables. Doorknobs were, coming off when they tried to open doors. So I think there's a lot of like disrepair that also has to be done, and a lot of renovations in order just to get it up to an acceptable amount, a standard, especially if you want to sell it for what I'm sure she's wanting to sell it for.
Exactly. So, well, let's dive into this family a little bit more. And how did they even get to this point? Because Gotti being the crime boss at one time, building this mansion, when you see it in disrepair, it's also very easy to imagine that at one point it was the opposite of this. They probably had a staff trolling, picking up trash. You know what I'm saying? So let's maybe start with her father, John Gotti Sr. And I'm going to kick it to Dan to tell us a little bit about this icon.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the thing, right? So I grew up with this guy in the news all the time, right? Because the feds tried twice to put him away. They only got him on the third try. And they just don't lose trials typically, right? So this and his ego made him so prominent in the news, in the tabloid press, and people were obsessed with him. Also because he fostered that image. So in that sense, it's not so like he sort of was a reality show before there were reality shows,
Sure.
And his way of doing that was just by mugging to the cameras, which, listen, there had been mob bosses who'd done this before, but this was like, it was the worst thing to ever happen to the mafia, because now every mobster has a reality show, but that means you're kind of out of the mob business, to do that.
Yeah.
Secrecy tends to be the thing that works better there. And Alana, as you said, where did all this money come from? I mean, he led a coup essentially on the Gambino family. Or rather his associates were caught up in dealing heroin. It's a big no-no in the Gambino family. So the boss, Paul Castellano, was in this long feud with Gotti and his crew, was going to break him up, maybe was going to kill them for dealing drugs. And that led to the infamous night at Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan, where Gotti killed Castellano and his underboss in a hail of bullets, totally movie gangland stuff, and got away with it, and then became the most famous mobster in the country. So truly the same way that, it's really funny when I think about the Osbournes, how it's a reality show where nobody seems to know it's about Ozzy having a pill addiction. And that's what the show actually is about. And everyone's like, he's so crazy, It's like, this to me is a show about what's left behind by a horrible narcissist father, of which Victoria is definitely the most well-functioning of the kids, because the family, I mean, a therapist could just make millions working off this family alone, which, Alana, there's a lot of wrinkles to that.
Totally. I mean, that was fantastic. And I think leads to the mother, also called, here we go with the names. Her name was Victoria too, as well. So
it was Victoria 2, Roman columns 2. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So this Victoria, her mother, was married to her dad until his death for decades and decades. And she actually was different from him in that she was very private. She liked to stay out of the limelight.
Half Jewish also.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
incredible. I did not know that. I think
on her mother's side. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow.
And, she always stood by her man. Although there is this one amazing story, right, in which he was sort of staying out all the time. I mean, mob bosses notoriously, they just cheat on their wives or never, they don't really raise the kid. That's sort of accepted. One time, though, she sent his entire wardrobe to the club and said, because you love being there so much, here's all your stuff. And I thought that was quietly iconic.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah. Dan, there's a story that maybe shows a more sinister side to her and also gets to the trauma of the family about Frank and Victoria's brother.
So Victoria had multiple siblings, and one of them was young Frank Gotti, who quite tragically was on a scooter, a motorized scooter, was zipping around their neighborhood, Howard Beach, Queens, where the Gottis lived, where all the women, according to John Gotti, wanted to, get him away from his wife, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a more tragic wrinkle where Frank is zipping around the neighborhood, zips out into the street, and the neighbor, John Favara, hits him with his car. Now, it was a total accident. Yeah, and very sad. He did kill Frank in the car accident. My best read on what happened after was that John Gotti accepted it was an accident. Victoria Gotti, the mother, did not. And there was an incident where Favara came over to the house to try to pay condolences. I mean, imagine you're the neighbor. Imagine you're John Favara.
I don't want to think about this.
You've killed, really, you're a regular guy. You're just an honest guy. You've hit the Gambino crime family boss's son with your car. Total accident. You go over to pay your condolences. I mean, that must have took guts. Victoria Gotti attacked him with a baseball bat. Not John, mind you. And what happened not long after that was that Favara went missing, presumed dead. Later informants gave varying accounts of what happened to him. He was murdered, though, by the family. And the scuttlebutt from the investigators was they always felt John Gotti would have accepted it, but the mother is the one who pushed for him to be murdered, which I think sort of subverts some of the expectations we might have about how these families work, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, if you've ever been around an Italian mother, we know who wears the pants in the family.
Right.
Come on.
Exactly.
Right. We know of what we speak here, right? We all cut from the same cloth here. So, look, this is all pretty grim stuff lurking in the background of the reality show. I'm curious to you guys what your sense is of the psychology behind Victoria and this family watching even this heavily filtered reality show version of it.
Oh,
Sorry,
is that the $1 million question?
I think so. I think that's probably what they were hoping, all of America would be watching and try to figure out. I will say, as much as Victoria is pretty icy as a character, I don't think she's very warm and welcoming. She's constantly yelling, she's very abrasive. But I think and I think that, that's growing up with that kind of family. That's growing up with that kind of pressure of the media being around her family, growing up in the spotlight in a negative way, I'm sure she did. But also, I think, we'll talk about it later, but I think watching her stand up for herself the way she does on the date later, I think that's also a really positive attribute that she doesn't take shit. She's very straightforward. She speaks what's on her mind. I think, I'm someone that always tries to see that silver lining. I'm a perpetual optimist, which is so annoying, I know. But I don't know. I see a strong woman either way. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it depends on specific scenarios.
I think you hit upon something, Alana, I'm sure you want to talk about more, which is I like Victoria, and I always kind of liked her. I thought she was okay, I don't know. What do you think, Alana?
Yeah. Well, just to give you some context, Dan and I recently had to watch Mob Wives, which I don't know if you've seen that show, but compared to them, Victoria Gotti is like Grace Kelly. Okay.
Mm-hmm, sure.
She's actually I would say she's far more tame and less angry and sort of violent, which is hilarious.
Oh,
It's all about context, right? Then some of the women on that show, I think what they have in common, though, with all of these sort of mob wives or mob daughters is they're living in the shadow of men that aren't even there or possibly dead, right? So she's living in her father's shadow. She's also now turning to the ex-husband. He very much looms large, even though we don't meet him, right? Carmine Agnello.
Yep.
And, there's a lot that's been said that he was abusive towards her over the course of their relationship. Her father, John Gotti, hated him. And
he kicked the shit out of him at one point.
He beat him
up,
but they still got married.
Yeah.
But one detail I love is, he was Agnello was wiretapped. Ultimately, he got caught for running a scrap metal racket where he would steal cars, crush them down, sell the metal. I mean, real low-level shit.
Such a loser.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when they wiretapped him and caught him for that, and the wiretaps revealed that he was having this torrid affair with his bookkeeper, and that's what she was like, fuck you, I'm divorcing you.
Yeah.
You know, that's
I love that.
Me too. I was like, you know, it's not this horrible scam he's running, though. You better not boink your bookkeeper, because that's it.
I will say, as you know, as much as like, you know, I think that she, you know, maybe not be the most graceful, she is certainly entertaining and certainly worthy of like being the main character of a show that people would want to tune into, compared to like modern day, you know, mob wives, where reality TV has become a caricature of what it was. Victoria, to me, was a real person. And then, you know, what we have now are these, you know, heightened personalities for shock value.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think that is true, actually, that at the core of this is a genuinely interesting situation, right? Like, even with all the storylines or whatever that reality TV show artificially adds, it's just interesting to see these people like dealing with like Alana said, the void left behind. And in particular, I think what her brother, John Gotti Jr., had to go through, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I want to get into, I believe that Victoria actually, of all of her siblings, it's interesting that the daughter got gifted with this sort of the star power that her dad had, right? Like, she's very interesting. She writes a column for Star Magazine. At around this time, she sort of becomes a socialite in New York City that like can dust it up with like, you know, some literary circles, and she's going to all these parties. Like, she's a genius of image making, right? And here's the other thing. She is a novelist, and, you know, one of the books she wrote was like her memoir, but she also wrote other successful like mysteries
and kind of romance stuff, right?
Books, right.
Yeah.
She has a column at Star Magazine, which we see, you know, we go to the offices of Star Magazine.
We go to the office.
Can we talk about Star Magazine? Because again, I feel ancient, but this back before the internet took over everything. And I feel like, Misha, you got to fill us in. What was Star Magazine? Why was this important? And what's the visit to this office like? Because my mother used to buy Star Magazine.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, I mean, we're really getting into tabloid, you know, territory here. So in this first episode, they're in a little meeting talking about covers. And, you know, it's just a man sat there in a little boardroom with all of his little employees around. And he's like, you know what? We haven't had a how much weight have they lost cover in a long time. It was so shocking because today it would be immediate cancel. And so watching that, it was just like, wow, that's really what it was. And, you know, on my old show, The Big Flop, we did a lot of these pop culture, a lot of these reality shows throughout the 3 seasons. And it was so true that we really hyper-focused on women. We really hyper-focused on people's appearances, their weight, a lot of the negative aspects. And we saw how that affected a lot of especially young people growing up in the spotlight. So I did find that really crazy that she was working at a magazine like Star Magazine.
Yeah.
Knowing what it feels like and then kind of maybe contributing to it a little bit.
One of the personalities populating Star Magazine a lot at this time was her brother, John Gotti Jr., and subject to a lot of, let's just say, unkind names, because when John Gotti starts to go away to prison, even before that, he's transitioning and grooming his son, John Gotti Jr., his namesake, into the Gambino family. That alone is interesting to me in that I feel like typically mobsters, and especially high-level ones, they go, especially high-level ones, their prime ambition is for their son, their children, to not follow them into the business. A big thing in Chicago amongst the higher-level mobsters would be, my son is going to be a lawyer, I'm going to set him up with all that shit that he's not going to be in this world. if that happens, it tends to be lower level guys. So the fact that John Gotti not only, I think really in many respects, made his son join the mafia, but also to take on high level responsibility, especially once he went to prison, is like one of the more evil things he ever did. You know what I mean? Because John Gotti Jr., I think, Victoria's brother, probably would never have been a criminal, certainly never a boss of a family, were it not for who his father was. And he was simply not suited to it. He was not suited to it at all. I'll use as an anecdote, the feds raid a house or a social club he owns. They look behind a wall and they find a bunch of cash, hidden there. And they say, "Hey, John, what's this? We got 50 grand here. Of what are you hiding this away for a rainy day?" And they're, and he says, "You dirty rats, I had 100,000 back there." And it's like, don't say that. Get the lawyer. They can use that now. That you knew it was bad, like that sort of thing. Now, it must be said, they tried to put him away multiple times. The feds used a very, very, very untrustworthy informant in the last trial. They could not convict him on anything serious. And I think he lives a law-abiding life today on Long Island. So I kind of like him too in a weird way. I kind of feel like he got dealt a raw hand in life. But I'm curious what, Victoria, though, seems like she would have been better suited to take over from John, unless I'm mistaken here.
Yeah, seems like it. I mean, she does give me boss vibes, boss vibes. She commands a room. She commands respect. She, like I said, she doesn't hold any punches. I feel like she would be a much better crime boss.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Misha, you talked about this scene earlier, but one of the main narratives of the pilot is that 4-Star Magazine, she's going to start dating again. She's going to get set up on blind dates from a matchmaker is going to set her up.
Celebrity matchmaker.
And I think the most powerful moment of the pilot is she goes on a date with this guy. I think his name is Ed. He's a total creep. I don't know. And
somehow just the name Ed is already a
red
flag,
flag, right? Or am I making that up? I don't know.
I think it might be.
I think it might be Ed. He would be Ed, okay? He's like a bald, normal guy, probably an insurance salesman or something like that. They go out to dinner. He says some, kind of some I don't even remember. He says some shit to her that's sort of insulting.
It was definitely insulting.
Yeah, it was insulting. I remember now. He said that
it's called a neg, by the way.
What does he say? He says that she's softer than she appears, and
first he mentions that her boys are spoiled.
Okay. Yes.
And then he goes, "Are they the only ones who are spoiled?" And insinuating that she comes off as a spoiled rich woman, like daughter of Gotti. Then he continues on to say, I think that you are softer than the character that you portray yourself as, basically, because you come off this way with how you dress, and that you're not soft and you're showing off your features, right?
Right.
And so she calls that out. And then he also says that he did have this preconceived notion because of her last name. So all of that. But that's what I'm saying. But then she stood up and she goes, well, this has not been fun. And no wonder you're 60 years old and alone. And she got up and left.
So the way that the mob, in that moment, you actually see she would have been an amazing mobster / maybe she is, because way that she handles this is she becomes extremely calm and very quiet.
Which is so much scarier, right?
Which is so much scarier. And she's just cutting her stick and just she's just this has not been fun. And I see why you're alone. And
really
walks out.
great.
Whereas if you're a woman and you've been in that situation, normally you get flustered, you get really pissed, you're calling the guy out. She shows no emotion. And that is really powerful.
Wow.
Not affected at all.
I guess I'm clueless because I thought Ed was spitting some game here. I thought.
And that's why you're single.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But I have to say, I think that the most brilliant moment in production was around the storyline of Ed. So she went to the matchmaker. She was hearing about Ed. She didn't get to see a picture. And then, she was like, well, I really like someone with dark hair, maybe even salt and pepper hair. And the matchmaker says, oh, well, he's bald. And then they spend a really long time in this 22 minutes talking about his bald head, talking about how the matchmaker should have led with that he's a bald man. And then when he arrives to Victoria Gotti's house in a limo, the camera pans to a cracked window, and the only thing you can see is this poor bald man's head.
It's amazing.
I said, it's brilliant. That was the best camera work. That was the best editing. They truly got him for that.
Yes. And if you think that the body shaming of this era was only towards women, you were wrong.
Oh, no.
Okay?
No, fair game.
They spent half the episode talking crap about bald men. You know?
They put a boom mic just on Ed's bald head, which I thought was unnecessary, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
When those kids went out to the limo and they were like, he ain't got no teeth because he had a gap in his front tooth.
The kids are also
so
comedic
wild.
geniuses. Let's say that. I think that's when they're shirtless too.
Oh, well, they have to be. I'm sure all their shirts are covered in marinara sauce.
Oh my God. Oh, that was good. That was good. Well, I mean, I want to kind of now fast forward in time, right? So this show was on for 3 seasons.
It was a hit, right? I mean,
it was a hit, but it could have, it could have gone on for longer. I don't know how far the shtick could take them, right? But let's just check in with sort of post-show, what kind of happened, especially with these 3 sons. I'm very obsessed with the sons, if you can't tell. So Carmine, named after his father, becomes what he calls a hip-hop artist. Which I guess you have fun trying to figure that out.
Wait, so it's not hip-hop, it's hip-pop.
Yes.
That's already a mouthful, too, to say I'm a hip-hop.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. He goes on a VH1 show called But Can They Sing?
What was the answer?
Right. I think he...
Jury's still out on that one?
The jury's still out. So he was like the creative one, Victoria would say. That didn't go anywhere. Later, looking into the crime rap sheet of these 3 sons was honestly difficult because there were so many different things. So this isn't an exhaustive list. These are just some highlights because like their father, they're also really bad at doing crime. And I think we talk on this show a lot about exceptional mob figures, but I don't think we acknowledge enough. This actually is a skill, and for every, one fantastic mobster, there are hundreds trying and literally just going to jail constantly for very kind of low-level racketeering. Yeah. Carmine was convicted of COVID relief fraud. That's his big claim to fame. Okay?
That is, by the way...
Right? Of course.
I'm so tired of mob media glamorizing COVID relief fraud in their movies and their TV shows. I know it looks cool to everyone.
Look, Dan, he saw an opening. Okay? He saw an opening.
Saw that
and
opportunity.
He took it. John and Frank, they got assault charges because they attacked their brother-in-law because he robbed John's home. Okay, it's very confusing. Basically,
okay, this begins with one relative robbing the home of another relative.
Yes, the brother-in-law. So maybe I don't quite understand how that guy's connected. The point is they assault some guy, the brothers.
And then they beat up their brother-in-law.
Yes.
Okay.
Then John also has felony drug charges for dealing and doing drugs. This is just scratching the surface. But most notably, all 3 brothers got their mother's house raided in 2016 because they were being investigated for federal tax evasion.
Yeah.
And
gotta
that
pay your taxes.
raid of that mansion, the mansion that is the setting for this lovely show, since that raid, it has been abandoned. They all left the home. It goes into foreclosure. Okay. Now there are abandoned like YouTube explorers. You know those YouTube explorers that go into abandoned homes? They've done this house. And they
gosh.
found scripts, designer clothing, booze, automatic weapons. They also found a secret room that was locked. That just, they went in and all there was like designer stuff. It wasn't even like, I wish it was bodies or something that would be more fun, but it was just this weird locked room. But, you know, I do have to update though that in March it sold. Misha, do you want to guess how much this house sold for?
Oh, in March this year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Higher, is it high or low?
Should we do Price is Right rules?
Yeah.
Well, no, why
Price is
don't you
Right.
guess? Okay, let's just say this. Imagine this. You saw the state the house was in in 2003,
Yeah.
2004.
So over
then
20
it's been
years later.
raided
Okay.
and sitting abandoned and in foreclosure.
Yeah.
No one will buy it. She never sold it.
That poor real estate agent. That's the real crime. She never got her
She
commission.
never got hers. No.
Oh my
never
God.
got
Imagine those
commission.
showings. Baking chocolate chip cookies in that rat den. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to say, okay, I live in a really hot market that everything's really pricey. So I might be high, but I'm going to say 1.8 million.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take
Dan?
the under. I'll do the Price is Right and say $1.
$1?
Yeah, well, this is the way it works on Price is Right. If maybe I'll be closer to the real figure than 1.8 million is, you know?
Okay.
It was also 6 acres.
Yeah,
There's
I know.
land.
This is okay. It sold this. I cannot get over this. 1.1 million. You could not get a shoebox in Los Angeles County for 1.1 million. I'm actually like, I should have bought it. Honestly, that's
Well, yeah.
that is just for the acreage alone. Misha.
I should have bought it.
No,
Yeah.
for 6,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a huge house and a huge estate for sure.
It has a pizza oven named Rosebud in it that, you know, John Gotti spoke of it before he died, you know?
Look, all I'm saying is in the year of our Lord, 2025, to sell that house for 1 million, that says something about a lot of things, but particularly the mob and how far it has fallen, right? If we see this house, not to be heavy-handed, as a metaphor for the mob, sort of tracking its power. Dan, maybe you can pop in and talk a little bit about that, but
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's really cool. Don Jr. is going to move in, renovate the place, you know?
it's sort of his style, honestly. Just go to Costco and get some of those, you know, spray paint gold details onto.
Well, the White House is going to look like this fucking house soon, right? I mean,
it will.
right? We got the ballroom. We got isn't he building another fucking thing? Anyway, but maybe that's another
what if
podcast.
it secretly was him that bought it?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm really not even kind of joking when I say that. Like, I don't think it's that crazy and that some MAGA guy bought this. But look, yeah, this speaks to, I mean, and I mentioned Citizen Kane like half jokingly, but it sort of is like the house in Citizen Kane where it's like just a testament to this guy's corroded empire. I mean, and it's really interesting. The mob that exists now in New York, and particularly the Gambino family, which was what Gotti led, it has gone a 180 in terms of realizing its effectiveness comes from staying in the shadows and being very quiet, not courting publicity, and really going back to basics. So we do sort of laugh at the COVID relief fraud thing, but like, if done well, like that's the sort of bread and butter of the mafia in today's era, right? That kind of white collar fraud. So the Gambino family in the years since once the Gotti stuff was finally over, his brothers and his son were out. They were no longer running the family on his behalf. They sort of reinvented themselves. They really forged new ties back with Sicily and Italy, where the mafia is so much more ruthless and professional and less given to snitching. And they sort of rebuilt their power. They're a shadow of what they were, but I would say they're probably more powerful than people would think. It's just not going to be in the John Gotti style anymore. And I'll add as a weird postscript, one of the Gambino boss who was really responsible for this resurgence was a guy named Frank Cali, really skilled mobster, really good at developing ties again to Italy. He was murdered in his driveway by, not by another mobster, but by a QAnon fanatic.
My God.
And we're going to do an episode about this someday, who had been so radicalized online that he thought this mob boss was in league with, I don't know, the Vatican and Bill Clinton or whoever. So now the biggest danger facing these guys is internet, conspiracy theories.
Talk about a metaphor for where we're at.
Right?
It's like,
that's
QAnon
crazy.
people are going to kill you, actually.
I mean, and I got to feel like as a mob boss, that's got to hurt. Like, especially, I didn't even, what? I got killed by a guy from the internet, I mean, but I don't know, Misha, do you we talked about this too. The rise of, we talked about this rise of influencers, of reality stars for the sake of being reality stars. And now we're even seeing that with ex-mobsters becoming influencers. I wonder, as someone who knows a lot about this, what your thoughts are on this race to the bottom. Where does it end, right? Now we have multiple mob murderers becoming podcasters and Instagram and TikTok guys. I don't know.
Yeah, George Santos made millions of dollars on Cameo after after his downfall. It's really bizarre. We've gotten to a place where I really think that a lot of people don't necessarily understand the weight and the I guess the real life consequences of bad people. And so a lot of people find it funny. It is a form of entertainment. And maybe that's because of, growing up on these reality shows where we watched characters do terrible things, that it just made sense with the rise of social media that we just continued that on. But it is a really good question. Where does that end? How far does it go? And, we've got some pretty crazy people and some pretty high places.
Right.
Good way of putting it.
Well, and that speaks to it, right? The president is sort of doing a John Gotti impression now in a lot of ways, which is bizarre. But Ivanka is not doing a Victoria Gotti impression, on the other hand. That didn't pass down.
No,
right.
Yeah. But Dan, when the president
Yeah.
is a criminal, who cares if your influencers are criminals,
It's a good point.
There's not going to all of a sudden be ethics for, watching a murderer try a pumpkin spice latte. That's harmless compared to what we're dealing with now, right?
Yeah.
Even murderers deserve the pumpkin spice.
The PSL.
Well, this brings us to the real topic of today's episode. Pumpkin spice. Isn't it a little everywhere now?
I think the mob started the PSL for sure.
Yeah. Well, this was so fun.
It was
Misha,
a blast.
Fantastic to see you again.
Misha, where can we hear you, see you these days?
Yeah, I'm on socials everywhere at Your Bestie Misha. And I actually have a debut book being published in February.
Amazing.
Called Be Your Own Bestie. Pre-sale is coming out very, very soon.
Wow. We buried the lead here. Now you're a published author. This is amazing.
You're in every medium.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Trying to be my own, not mob boss, but
Victoria. You're Victoria.
This is the Victoria playbook.
Hey,
this is
she
good
had a
stuff.
New York Times bestseller. So,
Yeah.
She's killing it. And so are you. Thanks again for coming. We had a great
Thank you.
time.
I learned so much.
It was such a blast. Please come back anytime. Folks, that's going to wrap us up for this episode of The Outfit. Thanks again. Join us next week. We'll be back with another tale of how the mob explains America. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.